Hello, welcome to Live Talk for Tuesday, September 19th, 2017. I'm Mark Crutcher.
And I'm Renee Hobbs. I'm glad you're with us today.
You are Renee Hobbs, aren't you?
I am. That's my name.
You really are.
Yes.
You didn't start out that way.
No, I didn't.
Renee Parvin is what you started
Parvin.
with.
Yeah, I was a Parvin.
But then you got married.
Yeah,
and
right.
that all changed.
Right.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's the way it's supposed to work, I think.
That's the way it works. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history, right?
That's right.
A husband and 3 kids later, here you are.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a very serious subject to talk about today. I think this goes to the future of the pro-life movement.
It does.
It's something that we really need to be discussing. We've put it off for a while because we don't want to create dissension within the pro-life movement, because I've lived through that in the past. You weren't in it back when it was really, really bad. Mm-hmm. Back when there were people in the pro-life movement that wouldn't go into the same room with other people in the pro-life movement. Mm-hmm. But this is something we got to talk about, and somebody that's also expressed a lot of concern about this. Mm-hmm. 2 other people that I've visited with on this is Father Frank Pavone, and he's very concerned about this, as is our buddy Troy Newman. And Troy's joining us by phone from Shaw, Kansas. Troy.
Hello, Troy.
Hey, guys. Good to be on the show here with you today.
Yeah. Let me just lay out here what the situation is, Troy, and you tell me where I'm wrong, or if you don't think I'm wrong.
Have you ever been wrong?
Well, I seem to recall one time back maybe in 1967 or 68.
He's been wrong.
Yeah, just ask Renee and my wife Tulane. They'll tell you. They've got a journal started of every place. But anyway, this is a good news, bad news situation as far as I'm concerned. First off, it's more evidence that the pro-life movement's winning, because Satan is now attacking us basically on 3 fronts, because he sees that we're winning. Of course, the obvious one is he's attacking us with the pro-aborts, which he's always attacked us with. That's not anything new. The media, when I say pro-aborts, I include the media and academia and Hollywood and all these people. That's part of the abortion lobby. But we're also seeing now something that we haven't seen in many, many years. We're being attacked by what I call grandstanders. These are people who come into the pro-life movement and tell everybody else to step aside. We'll show you how this is done. And you're not even pro-life. I mean, recently, I've been accused of not being pro-life. You've been accused of not being pro-life. Troy's been accused of not being pro-life.
And the problem with that is the history of the pro-life movement.
Yes.
The lack of history.
Well, they don't, yeah. We've been through this before, where you have these people come in, and they're the pure ones. They're the ones who, as I say, are the keepers of the flame. And there's a group now out here. I won't even grace them by giving their name, but they're constantly talking about they want to destroy the pro-life movement. They have openly said that. You know who I'm talking about, Troy. Have you not heard them say that very thing?
And they're trying to redefine what the pro-life mission is, and they couldn't tell you. Look, these people, and a lot of them, they're a one-trick pony. They get one idea, and they think this is it, and they gather to themselves a bunch of sycophant followers that would just live and breathe to hear these people speak or talk. And oftentimes these tactics have nothing to do with ending the child killing, but it's really popular and fun, and they create good marketing techniques and followers that follow them around, tell them how great they are.
Well, the biggest problem here...
It's absolutely useless.
Right. The problem here is, Troy, and you've heard me say this many times, as has Renee, these people aren't here to save babies. They're here to save themselves, or so they think. This is what their agenda is. It has nothing to do with stopping abortion. Nothing. This is about making them feel good, and more importantly, making them feel superior to the people that have been doing this for 40 years. And so, that, like I said, they come in and tell everybody to step aside, and they're going to show everybody how things are done. But there's a more dangerous group out there that we have, that we've been involved with some of these people, and this is the most dangerous group in my view. I think these grandstanders, I think they'll die of their own accord at some point, because I've been in this over 35 years, and I've seen these people come and go, and I think they'll die of their own accord at some point. And Troy, I don't want to create a sore subject with you, but to some degree, these grandstanders You saw some of them in the early days of Operation Rescue, the group that you now run. In the early days, I had some of these people right here in Dallas, Texas, look me right in the face and say, if you're not part of Operation Rescue, you're not pro-life. You're not doing anything. And it was...
Well, I think that's a testimony to human nature. That's exactly what we saw back then. We then, and there are people that are telling us right now, unless you're doing X, Y, or Z, you're not really pro-life.
Right, exactly. And that's, fortunately, that aspect of Operation Rescue died out. Those people went back home, and we haven't heard from them since. They're not doing anything. They're back up in the stands watching. They're not pro-life as much as they're just fans of the pro-life movement, and that's all they.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark. I mean, that's by design. Actively had to weed those sorts of personalities and that sort of thought process out of the movement in order to survive and to complete the mission.
Right, exactly.
This isn't about me. It's not about you. It's about rescuing the babies. It's not about your free speech rights or your rights at all or our rights.
Okay, well, let's talk about
ending the child killing.
We've set them aside. I think they're gonna die on their own accord at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest problem that we've got right now, I know for a fact the biggest problem that we've got right now is, and they don't have a term, we'll just call them pro-life millennials, people from the millennial generation that are now coming into the pro-life movement. And they are bringing with them a lot of the problems that we see in the whole millennial generation. I've got a millennial daughter. You've got millennial kids, and you've been around a lot of millennial. You're right at the beginning. I mean, at the end of the previous generation.
Right.
So there are people that are not too far different, and some of them in age from you. But these people are coming into the pro-life movement. In some ways, they have a lot of the same characteristics as the grandstanders. It's stand back. We'll show you how this is done. We're taking over. And we're seeing more and more of this. And a lot of these people, unfortunately, are being tied to, they're calling themselves feminists who are pro-life. And there was already a pro-life feminist group out, Feminists for Life, and that group is one that I've been friends with some of the people in that started it and that have run it in the past. And they were truly pro-life. Mm-hmm. This group, and Troy, you said this to me the other day when we were talking about this subject and about this particular show. They are far more feminist than they are pro-life. Do you still say that? I mean, would you still argue that point?
Absolutely. When you have people that refuse to vote for Donald Trump because he's a man or he's an alpha male, and not based on policies, when you basically have two people, or two or three people, I guess you could vote for in the presidential election, and they choose the feminist one. They voted for Hillary Clinton because they simply couldn't stand an alpha male getting into the White House. And then you add, feminist for life after that. That's always secondary. They weren't interested in ending abortion. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the best president the United States have ever had. I think he could be. But when you base your decisions not a pro-life position, not on the aspect on the aspect of your feminism or your ideological views, that's when you get into real problems.
And we've got a lot of those. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of those in there, and we're seeing all these articles now around the country talking about the quote-unquote new pro-life movement. You brought me an article the other day, and it's really scary. These people, for the most part, almost without exception, at least the ones I've been around and been associated with, don't know anything about the pro-life movement. They don't know any history about the pro-life of the pro-life movement. They don't know the issues. And you brought up an interesting point to me one time, Renee, when we first started recognizing this problem and talking about it. When I said they don't know anything, you said, and they don't want to know anything.
That's right.
They don't want to learn.
Right. And the sad part is they have people behind them that are following them, and they're
Right.
teaching them wrong. They're
Right.
teaching them false, and I mean that is a huge issue.
Some of these people, and I'm not going to name any names, but people out there in the public would know who they are if I did name their names. I'm not even convinced they're pro-life. I don't think they know what it means to be pro-life. I think you could take these millennials, these pro-life, a lot of these pro-life millennials, not the followers, but the leaders. I think you could put them in a room and say, write me out a simple definition of what pro-life is, and I don't think most of them could do it.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think most of them could write a real definition of what pro-life historically means.
Right.
And this is a very dangerous situation, Troy, because what Renee has said is correct. These people are creating large followings of other people who are like lemmings just following them off the cliff. And, you know, I talked to Father Frank about this, and we're going to talk in a minute about a project that you've brought up, Troy, and that we're going to be working on with you. This idea of having a conference sometime. I don't know what your current thinking is. I think you were thinking sometime early next year to address this situation because it's getting out of hand. And I talked to Father Frank about it, and I haven't asked you if you've talked to him about it or not, but he agrees with us. You know, you and I had that conversation with him. He is truly alarmed about this.
Yeah, he is. He is very concerned.
He's very concerned about this because, Troy, let me tell you something. We cannot, as the current leaders of the pro-life movement and the leaders in the past generation, we cannot hand the baton off to these people. It cannot happen. If it does happen, the fate of the unborn is sealed. They're done. The pro-life movement will collapse. It will implode. If the way these people are behaving right now, if we turn this movement over to them, I think they will implode it. Do you disagree with that?
And I wouldn't limit it just to millennials, Mark, because there's people of all age groups have fallen into a lie that somehow we're going to end abortion with feminism or singing kumbaya and happy thoughts. The left is ruthless on this issue, this one issue alone. They will never abandon it. You just think back to some of the Supreme Court nomination hearings we've had, or even the election of Donald Trump and so forth. It's the one issue that holds Satan and all of his minions together is the issue of child killing. And if anybody thinks that we're going to win this, as I've heard people say, we're going to win abortion with love, I'm sorry. This is going to take true grit. This is going to take self-sacrifice. This is going to take
It always has, Troy.
Real work, and it always has.
Right.
And again, you said right in the beginning of this message that we're winning, and it's true that we're winning. But by all indicators, the areas in which we are winning has taken huge amounts of energy and sacrifice, and not just kumbaya, okay, or articles to the letter. Or we're not going to win this battle by attacking each other and saying we're part of a new movement of love that helps women. And I'm all in favor. I've started pregnancy counseling centers. You have in the past. I still see pregnancy counseling centers. There's one right next door to my office and so forth. But now mark my words, we will never end abortion. We'll never end it by setting up pregnancy counseling centers or doing sidewalk counseling, okay? That's like saying the Red Cross is going to end the war in Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan.
Well, I mean, it's just like in the Bible. All through the Bible, we're supposed to fight. We're supposed to fight the war in front of us, and God does go before us if we're doing righteousness. But this verse really stuck out. It's 1 Corinthians 13:6. Love finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. And as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and fighting the battle in front of us, and not just with love, but actually fighting,
Right.
Well, that's what we're supposed to be called, or that's what we're called to do here.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing that really infuriates me about this, Troy and Renee both, and you've heard me say this before. Let's imagine we can go back to December 7th, 1941, and the Japanese have just bombed Pearl Harbor. I think that if these people that are saying, oh, we're going to win this with love, and we're going to win it with this kumbaya, sitting around the campfire, singing camp songs or whatever, that kind of approach, Is that what they had done if they had been president of the United States instead of Roosevelt? Is that what they have done? Or was, in other words, was Roosevelt wrong to come out the next day and say this is a day that will live in infamy, and get ready because it's about to descend on you?
Right.
And he called up the Army and well, not the Air Force. There wasn't an Air Force in the beginning of World War II, but the Army, the Navy, the Marines. He called them up, and he didn't say, "Let's go out there and love the Japanese."
I mean, that's just like 9/11. Right after 9/11, I mean, we sent in our troops. We fought.
Right.
We
And we
went
still
in
are.
to take charge here.
We still are fighting
So,
that war.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, these people, and I've asked some of them this question: if you were president, would you have said, "Oh, we're just going to love the Japanese. We're not going to shoot at them. We're not going to fight them"? They said, "Well, no. Of course, that's a war situation. This is a war situation for the unborn." And what you're saying is that no, we wouldn't have done that when you were trying to protect my life. I want you to fight when you're trying to protect my life. But that's a good enough standard for the unborn. We'll just love the people that are butchering them 3,000 a day.
Yeah.
We got to remember something. The unborn children in this world have a 9/11 every single day. About 3,000 people were killed on 9/11, and 3,000 babies are killed every day in this abortion holocaust. They have one every single day, and we're going to love the people that are doing this into quitting. No, you can love them afterward.
Yeah.
You can love them afterward. And just like we now love the Japanese, I would argue that we have been very kind to the Japanese since World War II. We rebuilt their country. We made them into an economic powerhouse
Right.
that rivaled us at times, right?
There's a time and place for everything.
Right.
Is the point of that. Well, Diana wants to know who the people are so they can be protected
No,
from them.
we're not going to use names at this point, but you know who they are. And you just listen to what they're saying, and you follow what they're saying very closely, and you'll figure out who they are. But we don't need to give you names right now, but I think most people watching this know who we're talking about. And they certainly know who we're talking about. But don't you see it, Troy, as more evidence that we're winning, that Satan is now using these grandstanders and these millennials to attack the pro-life movement because the pro-abortion movement can't beat us?
Well, I think there's hardly a day that goes by where there isn't an article that comes across my desk where one person's trying to redefine the pro-life movement at the expense of us, attacking people who hold the graphic pictures of the victims of abortion that use bullhorns. And I'll plead guilty on that one. I've used a bullhorn a time or two to get beyond the chatter of the pro-aborts, to be heard, or use aggressive measures to end abortion. You know, there was a time when I had 10 huge diesel trucks with pictures of aborted babies just traveling the country. That is to some of these people, that is so far outside the realm, they would literally rather quit the pro-life movement than associate with people like us to do that thing.
No, Troy, you're wrong. They wouldn't quit the pro-life movement. They're not part of the pro-life movement to start with. But the fact is, instead of quitting the pro-life movement, what they'll do is they'll join with the pro-aborts to attack you.
Well, yeah, and they try to redefine the in fact, one particular writer you're talking about says, I'm not part of the old way. We're part of a new movement in the pro-life movement, that a new move of the pro-life movement that we're going to win with love, and we're going to win by compassionately reaching out to women. I'm not against reaching out to women in compassion.
No.
Time and time again. We do that on a regular basis. But as you said, this is a battle. There's a 911 for every single day of the calendar year against the children. We're going to be very aggressive and resolute and self-sacrificing to end this, and it's not going to be done by singing Kumbaya.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'll also talk about a show we're going to have on Thursday. We've got a person coming on about a new project that she's doing on Thursday, and I know you know her very well, Joan Andrews, Bell, who used to be just Joan Andrews. And I'm telling you that you remember the days when she was probably the best-known person in the pro-life movement. She was the hero of everybody in the pro-life movement at one point. Would you agree with that, Troy?
birthed the Operation Rescue movement.
Right. She created Operation Rescue originally before Randall Terry took it public.
Well, her actions did. I mean, she went into the abortion clinics and disabled the abortion machines, and she went to jail for that.
She went to prison.
We said, if this very small, petite, soft-spoken woman can do that, then the least we can do is sit outside the abortion clinic, or at least pray against abortion.
Let's make people understand. Joan Andrews went to a state penitentiary in Florida, the Florida State Penitentiary. They gave her 5 years. She spent
2.5.
2.5 years of that time in solitary confinement. And what she did was she went into an abortion clinic and clipped the plug off of a cord of the vacuum machine. And she spent 5 years in prison, 2.5 years of which was spent in solitary confinement. I'm going to tell you, Troy, you tell me if I'm wrong again. If we took all these, what I'm calling millennials, they go beyond that, but it's overwhelmingly millennially aged people that are involved in this. If you took 1,000 of them and put them in a room and said, who is Joan Andrews, I don't think that one of them could tell you.
It's worse than that, Mark, because let's just say you described what Joan did, and she did, and you told them that she just did this yesterday. Of those 1,000 people, I would say 800 would condemn her actions as not being loving, not part of the pro-life movement. They would distance themselves from her and try to cast her out of the pro-life movement, join with the pro-abortion crowd to condemn her.
Absolutely.
This sounds like Kentucky.
Yeah, that's right. Tell everybody what happened there.
Just the arrest that was going on, and
during the rescue.
Yeah, during the rescue, and them not leaving, but they didn't break any laws per se. They didn't cross the boundary, but they still did what they needed to make a point.
And they were attacked by the very people we're talking about.
Yes.
And they were viciously attacked. Rusty Thomas and others down there were viciously attacked and called names and said that they're not pro-life. That's not the pro-life movement. We are now the new pro-life movement. Well, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
They can't be the new. But the point about Joan Andrews, and she's going to be on the show with us Thursday to talk about this new project that she's doing. If you come into a movement like this, like when I did, or when Troy did, or when Father Frank did. Father Frank actually came in after me. We tried to learn everything we could learn about what had gone on up to that point, right? I assume you did that, right, Troy?
Oh, absolutely. Everything I can get my hands on. Dr. Wilkie's book, Randy Alcorn's book, several other essays and so forth from people around the country, Joe Scheidler's books, 99 Ways.
But we knew, Troy, what you and I knew was that we were standing on the shoulders of the people that came before us.
Absolutely.
The Joe Scheidlers of the world. The Father Marks. Father Marks was a guy that he and I just had a real connection right from day one. And Judy Brown and just Dr. Wilkie, Dr. Robertson. We befriended these people, and they befriended us, which was more important, because we recognized that we stood on the shoulders of these giants, and they recognized that they weren't going to live forever and needed to hand the baton off to us at some point. And that's what happened. Well, now, these new, whatever you want to call them, millennial pro-lifers are coming in. They don't want to know any of that stuff. Not one of them is, who was Dr. Wilkie? And who was Dr. Nathanson? And who was Joan Andrews? What did she do? And who was, just go down the list. They don't care who those people were. They know everything there is to know, so they don't need to learn anything new. That's the problem that we have. And Father Frank and I talked about this the other day with Renee was on the line with us, and he agreed. And I know you agree, Troy. Again, we cannot hand the baton of leadership of the pro-life movement off to these people. We cannot do that. And, I'm here at Life Dynamics, I recognized some time ago that I'm not going to live forever, obviously. And I needed to have someone that I could hand off the reins of leadership to. That's Renee's position here. And Renee has been like a sponge, soaking up everything. She's wanted to learn. I mean, she's driven me crazy a few times. with this, as only Renee can.
All right.
But wanting to learn everything because she recognizes that, when the day comes that I croak and I'm worm food somewhere,
Can't stand that.
well, whatever.
Gross.
When that day comes, she better know this stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
It's important.
but this group doesn't see it that way. They don't see any value whatsoever in what's come before. And what's that old saying? If you don't learn the lessons of history, you're doomed to repeat them,
That's right.
right?
We don't want to do that.
And the problem is, Troy, in the pro-life movement, and Renee, we don't have the right to be arrogant and to make these decisions for other people because we don't pay the price when we're wrong. If we paid the price for our own failures, then you could say, well, okay, you failed, you're going to pay the price for it.
Right.
But we don't, because we're all going home tonight.
Yeah.
But 3,000 babies are going to be in dumpsters
Yeah.
and
That's
ground
right.
up in garbage disposals.
Yep.
Or they're going to be in a UPS shipping container going somewhere because they were chopped up and sold for parts.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the cost of pro-life failure is. And I don't think these people have a good sense of that. They don't sit down at a table like this and understand that when we started this show 26 minutes and 29 seconds ago, babies were alive and kicking that are dead right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fact. That's the reality. And if you're truly pro-life and you're going to be a leader in this movement, like I've told you before, you better live with that every day. You better understand that reality every day. Every day we don't win, another 3,000 babies
Right.
get chopped up.
Does. Right. I understand it.
This is a dangerous situation, Troy. It
is, and I, but I've kind of summed it up into four essential topics that pro-life leadership needs to maintain. And Renee, I'm glad you brought this up. Number one is our faith. Whether you're Catholic or Protestant or someplace in between, evangelical, Orthodox, the people that have made a big dent in the pro-life movement and in faith winning have been people of faith, a strong, deep-rooted faith. Number two, they understand the history of the pro-life movement, and Mark, you touched on that. We were standing on the shoulders of some really amazing people. And number three, they had the intellectual wherewithal. They were deep thinkers. They just didn't run off half-cocked. They understood their logical conclusion to your actions or your thought process. And I mean, people like George Grant. I mean, my goodness, talk about reading. George Grant is such a huge impact on my life. He's a real thinker. Dr. Kennedy is another one. And then the fourth thing is the ability to have the vision for strategic action and having goals in mind and landmarks to be able to achieve something in order to get us closer to the goal. If you don't have these four things, you're not a leader in the pro-life movement. You're going to come in, you're going to make a splash, probably wound a bunch of people, and then move on with your life and leave the pro-life movement in worse shape than when you first got here. That's
right. That's exactly right. Well, I know, Troy, and I want to alert everybody because we're kind of laying the groundwork for this, but you and I have been talking about having this conference, and it's very loose-knit at this time, but I think it's coming together. I think we at least have a common vision for it. But having this conference where we address this issue, and especially address it from the standpoint of getting men more involved in this issue and getting men to take their rightful role in this situation. And I'm not saying that all the pro-life leaders have to be men, obviously.
No,
I chose a woman to be the leader of this organization when I'm gone. And I'm very proud of her, and if I had to do over again, I'd do it in a blur. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think to some degree, Troy, what you and I are saying is that a lot of men in the pro-life movement have abdicated their responsibilities, and we've got to get them back in harness. That's
right.
I think there's a lot of men that are women.
Yeah, well.
A lot of men that what?
That are women.
Oh, no.
That are women in their thinking, you mean. Well.
They've just bought into this feminism and lie that we can just love people into the kingdom people into victory. And again, we're all about love, but you know what? The opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference.
Indifference. That's right.
And we cannot be indifferent to the plight of the preborn child. And the framers of our Constitution signed a document called the Declaration of Independence, and they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors in order to achieve a very admirable goal. And I think all of us in the pro-life movement, at one point or another, has said the same exact thing. We've lost friends. We've lost fortunes.
Right.
We've our honor. Heck, we're being attacked daily by both sides of the aisle. So, we're people without reputation. Why? Because we have a deep, abiding faith, and we're in it to win it, to end the war on the children.
Right. That's a thing that I constantly talk about. I talk about it in my new book, Siege. We have to recognize that the war is not between the pro-aborts and the pro-lifers. It's between the pro-aborts and the babies. That's where the war is. You and I and Troy and all the other pro-lifers that are out here fighting this battle, we're basically soldiers who signed up to fight on the side of the babies who couldn't fight for themselves. But we are not the victims of the war, because we're going to go home tonight, win, lose, or draw. We're going to go home. The battle is between the pro-aborts and the babies. Mm-hmm. And we are basically kind of like mercenaries, if you think about it for a minute, volunteer soldiers. We entered this war to fight on their side, and that's the thing we need to keep in mind all the time.
Yep.
That's right.
It's good.
All right, Troy. Well, thank you for joining us,
Hey.
and we're gonna put this thing together, and we're gonna make it a real success. And I think we're looking at. Am I correct that you're thinking about sometime early next year or sometime?
Yeah, I think 2017, probably somewhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Is pretty easy to get into. And we've got some excellent speakers and real godly people that lined up that want to come. So I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. We're going to make this thing work, and I think Renee will be there with bells on, won't you?
Oh, absolutely.
You wouldn't miss it for the world.
No,
we wouldn't keep
Looking
you out for
forward
the
to it.
world. Well, thanks for joining us, Troy.
All right.
Thank
you.
You take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Oh, let me hang that up. Got any comments we need to deal with?
No,
Okay.
some, but it's.
All right.
We'll talk about it later.
What about you? Anything else you can add to this?
No, I mean, we have been getting a lot of good feedback and show suggestions, and have talked to several people, and so we do appreciate that very much.
Right.
And if you please continue to send those our way via email or private message, or
Yep.
however you want to do it.
Renee is the gargoyle on that sort of thing. So if you and we have a couple of things that we're looking at right now that people have sent in for suggestions for
Yeah.
shows.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, we keep them all.
right, we keep them all.
We just wait for that right time, right
Right.
place type situation when things are
Right.
going on to
that related to that subject.
exactly.
So we've got a couple of things we're working on. We just talked to a couple of people today that are going to do a research project on their own.
Yeah,
And they called us about it as a result of Life Talk, and
that's right.
they sent you a thing about it and
Expose some more evil.
expose some more evil. They're going to do a research project, and then we're going to have them on talking about that. So
Yep, it'll
if
be
you've
good.
got some idea, be sure and get it to Renee, because, again, I've told you before, we put this show on for you. This is your show, not ours. We're trying to educate you. And think about this show that we did today, and share it, because I'm telling you, this is as important a show as we will ever do, because this deals with the very future of the pro-life movement, which means it deals with the future of millions and millions of babies. We have to always keep that in mind. That is a difficult thing to reconcile sometimes, but it's a fact.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
You're done?
I'm done.
Stick you with a fork?
Yep.
Okay. That's all the time we have. Until next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you Thursday with Joan Andrews Bell.
Have a good evening.